Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Michael from Professional Advantage. Welcome to our Advanced Budgeting and Forecasting webinar, today focusing specifically on the Microsoft Dynamics GP application. Now, we can see from this event that it's a very interesting, very exciting topic based on the number of registrations and the attendees today, which is great. And to take us through the presentation today, I'm very happy to say that we have Phil de Hardecourt. Phil has been working in our performance management team for at least 6 years, and in that time has implemented more than 20 solutions focusing on budgeting and forecasting and business intelligence. Phil's a senior member of our team and will actually take us through the product demonstration today. So before we actually get started, I just want to make reference to a couple of key pieces of information for you today. Firstly, we will be allowing some time at the end of the session, and that time will allow us to handle some questions that you may have during the session. So as we go through the presentation today, on the right-hand side of your GoToWebinar panel, you can actually type in a question. You can type that in at any time during the session, and we'll, as I mentioned, allow some time at the end of the session to answer those questions. Any that we can't get to, we will use that as part of our follow-up with you, with the follow-up to the session today. And the second thing, just to make sure you're aware, is we will be recording the session for you today. Now, we'll do this for a couple of reasons. One is so you can actually just sit back and relax and enjoy the presentation. You don't have to take screenshots of everything you see, because we will record and we will send you a copy of that recording. It'll also allow you then to forward that to anyone else within your organisation that you think may be interested in the topic that you've seen today. So that recording will come out to you as part of the follow-up to today's session. We will, as I said at the end, leave some time for questions, and then at the very end of the session, and I'll make reference to this as well as we finish, there'll be a short survey at the end of the GoToWebinar which will allow you to take advantage of a special offer that I'll leave as a surprise right to the very end. So thank you, Phil. If you could now take us through today's session.
Okay, thank you, Michael. All right, so what I'm going to cover today is basically budgeting and forecasting, specifically aimed at the Dynamics GP user audience. Really, I'm going to break this into three sections. Firstly, I'm going to start off by talking about the challenges of using Excel for corporate budgeting, because that's what most of our clients are using before they look at using a piece of technology, in this case like Board. And I'm going to look at Board as experienced by three types of users: a finance manager or financial accountant, a budget contributor, the average end user of budgeting software, and a CFO or a more high-level user. Okay, so first off, I don't think that I'm going to get much disagreement when I start to talk about the limitations of using Excel around budgeting. When we generally get called into clients and they're looking at putting in a piece of software like Board to replace their existing budgeting and forecasting system, it's always Excel, it seems to be. And there's a few common features here. We quite often get called in because the budget process is taking an incredible amount of time, months and months. Organisation would like to do rolling forecasts or quarterly or monthly forecasts, but you can't. The budget via Excel is just too time consuming. We also find that quite often we're called in when a key staff member has left, because if you've built something that has dozens and dozens of Excel spreadsheets, you're often quite dependent on key staff. When they leave or they want to go on annual leave, you find how dependent you are. And obviously, Excel is quite error-prone. We also see problems around doing more than one version, especially if you've got 100 linked spreadsheets. It's almost impossible to have multiple versions. It's also unsecure. It's hard to scale up if you're adding new cost centres or departments on. And in general, it's a poor reporting platform. Okay, so Which brings me to our software board. And this, I like this slide because it nicely summarises in one screen what the software does. Working our way around clockwise, board allows you to pull from multiple data sources. If you're budgeting, you don't want to start off with a blank spreadsheet. You want to pull from payroll systems, from your ERP system, GP, for instance. You can, because it is a complete BI tool as well as a budgeting and forecasting tool, you can do all of your reporting, reporting, analysis. You can run KPIs, dashboards. What we're interested in, though, is the budgeting, the forecasting, planning, and so on. Apart from that, you've also got some neat functionality around the workflow, being able to track who's doing what, put some controls around what's getting entered, and so on. It integrates fully with Office. It will report and push information out via email and so on. This last point over here, though, rapid deployment, is what has always attracted us and most of our clients to board, which is rapid deployment, programming free. It's very drag and drop. It's not requiring you to learn any complicated and obscure pieces of programming language. Okay, so what I want to do is look at board through three views. Firstly, I'm going to start off with the finance manager, who's setting up a new budget and managing the budget process. Then I'll jump through to how an end user, a budget contributor, would experience board. And finally, I'll have a look at how a high-level financial user or a CFO would be interested, doing things like scenario comparisons, top-down adjustments, and so on. So let's have a look at the budget finance manager to start ourselves off. Okay, so what do I as a finance manager need to start off my budget? Here's a pre-built board capsule, and it's tailored specifically for this particular company. We would come along and build something that would be tailored to you. It may not look anything like this, or it might look quite similar. As a financial controller, I'm starting off my new budget for the new year. I'm going into my setup screen, and I've got a checklist here of things that I need to look at and go through. And, you know, as I can complete each one, I might put a tick against it. I'm going to start off by saying, okay, let's load in the data. So instead of having a whole lot of obscure steps under the hood, in board we can put a series of actions underneath buttons. In this case, this button is going to load the actual data from Dynamics GP. So off we go. It runs a procedure. It loads my numbers, and there we go. I've plugged in numbers, only sample numbers, of course. I can do the same thing with payroll system, integrate to pretty much any payroll system, and again, you know, click and load, and there we go. It's brought in all the information I need. At that point, you might also want to do some changes. You might make staff inactive, or change their salary grade or class, and so on. And you can do all that here, not to mention add new staff, but we'll show you that further down the track. Okay, so I've loaded my initial data. Next step is I'll probably want to start off my budget by seeding it from these actual data. Unless you're doing zero-based budgeting where you're starting with a complete blank slate, you want to provide the users with the closest set of numbers that you can at minimum amount of effort. Okay, so what I can do is I can go through here and tick the accounts that I want to transfer across from my actuals into my budget. Having done that, I can set any variations. So for instance, I might say, okay, I'm saying for my state, my consultant fees are going to go up in my head office by 10% next year, and maybe they'll go down by 5% in New South Wales, and so on. I can select the method of seeding. So I can do a direct copy, which means I'm saying, okay, I'm going to take August last year and use that to populate August this year. Or I might do an average copy where I might take several months and get an averaged figure and use that for my monthly figure. And this would be an either or. You could have some months being a direct copy from previous historical data, and some months you might want to average the results. And when I've run those, I've basically populated my initial budget with a set of numbers. Okay, I can also go and set global assumptions for every year, things like sick leave or superannuation or work cover, and maybe you've got more detailed assumptions. For instance, I have an overall work cover rate here, but I've also got overrides because I have a different work cover rate per state, CPI rates, and so on. I've also got a section for travel rates, because for my company, travel is quite a large expense line, and it seems to be something that's bitterly fought over. So what we've done is we've said for travel expenses, we're going to use standardised rates and just ask people to put in the trips and the route that they're taking, and then we will go off, we being the finance department, will go off and work out a good rate. We don't want budget contributors jumping onto Webjet or Flight Centre every time they want to put together a travel budget to look up airfare rates. Obviously, that's not every single air route there. We can create new ones. We don't need to go into the back end. We can simply create a new route, and I might say it is Melbourne to, what do I have? Melbourne to Darwin. And that also is a domestic route. And then that's added that in, and now I can pop in a value. It's quite expensive. I'm going to say $900, and it's $300 a night. And that now will be available to be used when we get to our travel section. Okay, we also have user security built in, and maybe when you're setting up the new budget is the chance to review your user security. I've got a list of users down the side here. Let me just collapse that. Here are all my budget users, and I can open them up. And it's a matrix here. We've got state by department, and we can select, for instance, that user Blanchard is just Department Client Services in 3 states. Okay, we've also got, we can reset the workflow and clear all our workflow locks. I'll come back and explain what that does after. And really, we've got to the end of our list at that point. Okay, at this point I can go in as a finance manager, and I can review what I've done and make any alterations here, and from there start to manage the process. And maybe at this point I'm sending out an email to the staff saying, okay guys, the budget's ready to use. When the budget starts to get entered, it's not like your scenario with Excel where it's all a black box until people start sending you back Excel spreadsheets. As people change the numbers, they're automatically consolidated, and as a finance person, I can sit here and see what the numbers are. I've also mentioned workflow before. I've also got the ability to be able to track where we are. Okay, so here I have every single one of my states and all the departments in the state, and I've got a workflow. When a user first opens up their budget for that particular state and department, it will flag in progress and put the username and date. So I can see who's starting to budget. So if you're wandering down the corridor asking the managers whether or not they've opened up their budget and they assure you that they have, you can check to see whether or not they really have started entering any numbers in, because this gets flagged when they first open up the budget. There's a submit button for end users where they can submit the budget, and we've also got an approval process. The submit and approval process also might trigger off an email to whoever you have nominated as the person to authorise or approve the budgets for that particular cost centre. And we can get an idea of how it's going, and we can do graphs and charts to show us that taxation department is pretty good, but advisory and client services is only at 11% so far. Okay, so let's move into the next type of person, the budget contributor. Okay, so what we're after here is someone who has only gets to see the things that they're interested in, cuts out the complexity, entering the numbers, submitting it, and to a certain extent reviewing where they're at. Okay, they have their own capsule or set of screens, and when as an end user I open it up, it throws me straight into my data entry screen. I don't have to go through any menus. It's limited me to just my division, because remember, here I am, I'm going in as user Blanchard. I don't have access to everything. I've only got access to a part of the organisation. And you can see from here that I can start to enter my numbers in and so on. Okay, we also have the ability to have more detailed templates. This is very much a P&L statement view of a budget, but there's levels of complexity built into here. For instance, if I go in on any of these, you'll see that on some lines they're white, which means I can't do data entry, and some are yellow, which I can. The white lines are fed from more detailed templates, for instance, fees, salary and wages, or for instance, details. If I click on details now, that'll throw open the detail screen for that particular state division and the account that I was on. And this allows me to basically break down a line into much more details, put in descriptions and amounts and so on. And when I've finished, I'll save it, which both saves it and transfers it back to, you can see my change, transfers it back to my main P&L template. So I've got a number of different templates here. I can go into details. We looked briefly at travel expenses before. So if I click on travel, we've got a travel template where we're saying, okay, choose the route, and it throws open my list of routes. Choose how many trips or nights you're going to be there, and board will then apply the appropriate rate. For some things, obviously, you don't want to just use a standardised rate supplied by the finance department. So down the bottom here, we can plug numbers in and so on. All of these get calculated with the rates applied, and when you click Save, it transfers the calculated rates back to our travel line on the budget. We have the same idea going on with salary and wages. You can see that again, salary and wages are locked from data entry. But if I click on my template link, it throws open a salary and wages template. We had about 100 staff loaded here, but this particular department only has 3 staff. I can create more staff if I need to. I can go off and say, test user, I'm a senior consultant and I'm active, and so on. So I can create more staff as need be. This is pulled through from my payroll system. I can alter the salaries and the status and the class. I have a little bit more information that's come through from payroll as well that I can also alter. I've got their FTEs for each month. So obviously, if my FTE is 1, I'm full-time. Beth, on the other hand, is taking 5 months off in the middle of the year, maybe maternity leave, and Franklin's not starting till 1 month in. I've also got the ability to put pay increases in by period, and when you calculate the totals on all of this, what you end up with is a quite detailed total salaries, which again also copies across to our main P&L template. One thing with this I should point out is that we've got the ability to start to change the templates, and even a end user can do this. I can go in and say, okay, well maybe I just want to see this by quarter. There we go. Or maybe I want to change the grouping, and I'll spin that around and say I want to see it by pay type. and staff and so on. So there's a lot we can do here. We've got some more templates as well. Not enough time to show you them, but other common templates we would probably look at would be some revenue-based templates, also capital expenditure. Okay, when we're done with all of our data entry as an end user, we can go through and submit the budget. And as it says here, it will flag your cost center as completed and lock that from further data entry, and it may also email your superior to say that Blanchard has finished his or her budget, please review. So if I say yes, you'll notice that all of those yellow lines have disappeared, and now this is a submitted and locked budget. Okay, so let's have a look at the third user group, the CFO. What the CFO is interested in doing is making more global top-down adjustments, looking at scenario comparisons, looking at longer term. Okay, so CFO comes along and they can do top-down changes because they're sitting on top of the entire budget here. And if they did a change to any of these accounts, it would push it down into the details. So for instance, if you notice, if we go down to client services, numbers change. If we change it to head office, the lines change. There's no fees section. I'm also able as a CFO to start to generate new versions. What I might say is that, okay, here's my base budget. I want to save that as my conservative version. So I've got a procedure over here that will ask me what I want to save it to. I'll save that to conservative. Okay, and now I've generated a complete copy of my budget, and I'm happy with that. Let's do a stretch version as well. So I'll save another version, choose stretch. Okay, and at this point, maybe I want to start playing around with this. So I'm going to be a bit more aggressive on the revenue because this is my stretch version, and maybe I'll change it to 6 million. Okay, that's an example of a top-down change. So if I was to actually drill into this number, I can click here and drill into it and see that it's made up from client services and audit. If I change the 6 million, it proportionally changes it according to the proportion that the numbers were stored in at the detailed level. In other words, it will go and change it by state, by division, by month, right down into the detail based on the same proportions. The function's called split and splat. And what it does from a CFO perspective, it's allowing the CFO to make a top-level change that will then correctly flow down into all of the details. Okay, I've also got, as a CFO, I can review the data and I can look at the workflows and determine how are we going and approve things or reject them and so on. The other thing I can do as a CFO is start to look at some of the reporting functionality within Board. Okay, so we've got a lot of different reports here. Let's just have a quick look at a couple of them. Okay, so Board is also a financial reporting tool. It can produce any of your financial statement reports or more of a business intelligence or KPI standard reports. It has the ability to be able to drill down. So if I pick, say, salaries, I can drill into it and I can see salaries by, in this case, by department, and then maybe drill into it again. And I can actually see salaries by partner, and maybe at that point I'll throw it open and say maybe I want to see it by state, although that person's in head office, only one state. But this is similar to the drill-through functionality that exists in, say, FRX or Management Reporter. Okay, let's have a look at a few more reports. Obviously, we can do things like balance sheets. We're not just limited to P&L style reports. But one thing that we can do that products like Management Reporter can't is start to add our own commentary, because Board allows you to enter data in as well as report on it. So, for instance, I've got my summary financial report, and maybe this gets printed out as part of our reporting pack, and we need to put some notes in. So, I can type away to my heart's content and enter whatever notes that I want and save it. So that's an important point that Board gives you that some of the other financial reporting tools won't. The other thing that Board will provide is more non-financial information and presented in a different way. So I've got analysis of partners, and we can see which partner's making the most money for this financial services organisation. I can drill into them, so I can say go and have a look at Doug, and I'm now seeing Doug's numbers there for an individual as opposed to the entire organisation. I can also select a section and say, well, let's just have a look at his numbers over those 3 months, and so on. You'll notice I've also got the ability to say email these reports out, or change the quarter, or have a look at individual divisions, and so on. There's quite a number of different charts you can produce. Anything you can basically think of, any graph, pie chart, waterfall chart, tree map, heat map, all sorts of lovely things, and they're all interactive. So again, I can choose selections, I can drill into it, and so on. Okay, one other thing that I did want to discuss, slightly outside of the CFO experience, but if we go back to my original chart, looking at Board's functionality, I emphasised the whole programming free and drag and drop. Nice point to finish off on, but let's show you how hard it is to build some of this. So I've got a spare screen here called DIY, and if I wanted to build a very quick report, here's all I need to do, and this is where all this drag and drop comes in. So I've got my data source, it's going to be actuals, I'll drag it over here into my values. And then I might say, well, let's do this by report by quarter. So I drag that across the columns, and maybe by account group for rows. And I'll refresh, and I've got my lovely report. I might want to add a layer to it. So again, I go into my layout, and I say, okay, well, let's drag in account here, and refresh. And now I've got a nice grouped report, so I can drill in and see what professional fees were and so on. If I want to get really detailed, I can actually go into the back end as if I was a developer and say, okay, well, I want to do this by state. So again, all I'm doing is dragging and dropping and right-clicking, and I'll choose state, and I want to put a list of states in here. I'll move it across. And maybe I'll put a pager in at the top here to show me it by division. At that point, it's now fully interactive. I could say, let me show you these 3 states and maybe just client services, and you can see the numbers changing as we go. This is where Board comes into its strength. There's no hard programming logic here. It's all drag and drop. And it's basically a toolkit that allows you to build whatever you want. Okay, on that note, I see that I'm about up to question time, so I might hand it over to Michael and we can have a few questions. Michael.
Thanks, Phil. That was excellent. I really appreciate you taking us through that today. I also just wanted to comment on the way you finished up there. I know that, or we know, that most organisations will say they have a solution that is quick and easy to use and easy to build. I think you just proved that at the very end there, where you quite dramatically said you were going to show us how hard it is to build it, and then within the next 60 seconds, we had data presented on the screen very quickly. So, look, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to actually see it in action.
Yeah, the total cost of ownership is something that's overlooked when we start talking about software most frequently, and that is quite important.
Oh, exactly, and that's that continued cost that is not always articulated by everyone. So yeah, good point. So we have some questions come through already. So just as a reminder, if you have a question you haven't already put that question down, just go into the questions tab within your GoToWebinar page on the right-hand side of your screen, and you can add your questions in there, and we'll get to those now. So Phil, I'll be brave enough to ask the questions if you're brave enough to answer the questions.
Fire away.
Excellent, excellent. So we've got a question now regarding the cloud. So does the software work in the cloud?
Yes, it does. It's both deployed on-premise and also via the cloud. It's entirely up to the end user as to where they want to site the board server, either in cloud or on site. It can be a client install, or you can also run board via the web. It works on tablets and all sorts of mobile devices, which is what you'd expect. And most importantly, with regard to the cloud, is that you can, if you were hosting board on the cloud, you can pull data from other cloud-based databases or from locally physical databases as well.
Okay, excellent. So just to kind of summarise that as well, the answer is yes, it does and can run on the cloud, but it's not only run on the cloud. It is an on-premise deployment as well. So the clients there have the options on what's the best fit for them.
Yeah, and it's also not a one-way street. If you host it locally and decide in 2 years' time to migrate it to the cloud, it's not difficult at all to do so, or vice versa.
Okay, that's another good point. Whereas some other applications are, there aren't any options, and others are. You're stuck in that path forever. Okay, we have another question now. This is specifically regarding budgets and Dynamics GP. So, can you transfer your budget back into Dynamics GP?
Yeah, certainly. The example I was showing you before was transferring data out from Dynamics GP, but Board can push data back into to GP's budget tables as well. And we have done this around clients who might have used analytical accounting, where having the budget numbers is quite useful on several screens. So there is a real reason they might be using Board for all their financial reporting, but they still need to get the budget numbers back into GP. Being able to push the numbers back into GP is actually quite difficult for a piece of software to do. Board can do it. But again, it then allows you to say, okay, well, I've got my budget back in GP. I can either do my financial reporting in Board, or I can do my financial reporting in GP via FRX Management Reporter. It's your choice for whatever suits.
Okay, excellent. All right, look, I might even be brave enough to answer this question, but I won't, just in case. So the next one is, can you include prior year figures for the reports?
Yes, certainly. There's no limit to the time ranges you create. You can report on prior years, or you can generate your initial budget figures based on prior years if you want to. There doesn't have to be an exact match. Okay,
excellent. Okay, this is a bit more of a technical question. Can you use this to update as a rolling forecast and then compare that to the budget?
Yes, you can. Limited time meant that I couldn't go into all the complexities of forecasting or rolling forecasts, but generally we see clients doing one of two things. They maintain their budget time range in their forecast, but they start to replace the budget periods or forecast periods with actual months. And so you're starting to get screens that have month columns there being populated with actuals and obviously locked from further data entry. You also have some clients who have kind of a rolling forecast concept where every forecast they're basically forecasting out 12 months, and in July it's July to June, in August it's July to August, and so on. So it's always 12 months out ahead. So either of those concepts can be done with Board.
Okay, excellent. So the flexibility is there, and it's not Board itself won't determine how that's presented. It is flexible based on the client preference.
It's important to emphasise that Board is a toolkit. One thing that we've noticed, over many years of doing budgeting and forecasting implementations, is that no two clients are the same. So we're customising to suit our clients' requirements. One might have a fixed range budget, and the one might be doing 18-month budgets, and there is no one right way to do this. Okay,
excellent. All right, I can see that there's a couple of questions that have come through from multiple people regarding Management Reporter. So I'll ask one question that sums it all up. Is Board considered as a replacement for Management Reporter as well as a budgeting tool? So Management Reporter being the financial reporting tool with Dynamics GP.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Management Reporter. It's a difficult question to ask, actually, answer this one. It really depends on the client. One thing I will say is that with the ability to do things like push budgets back into GP, we're not forcing our clients away from Management Reporter if they still want to use it, because we go to a lot of GP sites and discover that there's like 100 different reports set up in Management Reporter, and that would take a decent amount of time to convert all of those reports into Board. So we're not forcing people to move away from Management Reporter and onto Board. It's roughly comparable. There are some differences. Obviously, Board has a whole layer of graphical reports and can report on non-financial data that Management Reporter can't. But on the other hand, Management Reporter has some specialities around exporting to Excel and dealing with lengthy and complicated report setups that is more difficult to do in Board. So it's swings and roundabouts. Generally, we'll go and assess a GP site and recommend what we feel is the best approach. And in some cases, clients continue to use Board for some financial reporting as well as Management Reporter.
Yeah, okay, excellent. And look, just to summarise that as well, our intention here in positioning this is not as a replacement for Management Reporter, but as Phil mentioned, we would work with every client to determine whether or not that could be the case, but it is focusing here on budgeting and forecasting in addition to Management Reporter.
The argument that we do bring to the table is that often we look at clients and they have a budgeting software, a piece of business intelligence software, and a financial reporting software. So it's three pieces of software, and there's an ongoing cost to own those three pieces of software in support, but also in the time for your staff to maintain their skills with those three pieces of software. If you combine the three into one, which is what Board is, then you're going to have savings. Often we find that clients, because they're only changing the budget once every 6 months, or maybe building a new dashboard in their BI system once a year, they won't retain the information on how to go about constructing it. However, if you've rolled three pieces of software into one, you have 3 times the amount of work going on and 3 times as more likely to be able to be independent with it.
Okay, excellent. So, Phil, we've got a few more questions. I might just go rapid fire through these ones. Best you can, give us a yes, no, maybe answer. Does board perform consolidations for multiple legal entity budgets or financial statement reporting?
They do. They have a complete consolidation product as well that goes into incredible amount of detail and has a 100-page plus manual suitable for very, very large businesses with thousands of entities and so on. Or you can construct your own consolidation process if you've got something slightly different. So broadly, yes.
Okay, excellent. How does board track changes between different versions of a budget and at a detailed level?
There's a couple of ways of doing this. The way that I demonstrated was basically running one budget and then really taking a snapshot at the end of it. The alternative way of doing that is having each budget as its own standalone version and being able to copy the whole thing between versions. That allows you to say at any point in time, at any level of detail, what was it in the previous version compared to the current version.
Okay, excellent. We've got one here regarding cash flow forecasting, cash management. So could we or would we recommend Board as a cash management and cash flow forecasting tool?
Yeah, interesting question. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said, but it takes a lot of work. Recent releases of Board have beefed up that area, and now it's much easier to do cash flow reporting in Board. We've got some more reporting tools at our disposal there. Certainly, cash flow forecasting is something that's quite complex, but it also has a lot of value to it, and yes, we can do that.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I'll just a couple of really quick ones, I promise, and then we'll wrap up, Phil. You've been great with all these questions, just handling them on the fly. Appreciate that. Can we budget analytical accounting codes in Board, the AA codes?
Yes, we can, and we're actually in the middle of, or I'm actually in the middle of doing a implementation of a GP client with analytical accounting codes. So yes, no problems there. Okay,
brilliant. All right, and look, this is the last one, I promise. Could we run zero actuals, so zero being another financial application, zero actuals into Board and run management reporting and Board budget and reporting in there? So bringing in actuals from zero.
Yeah, okay, so because Board is a BI tool as well, it can talk to pretty much any other database. And from what I know of Xero, it's a quite recent product, so I'd have no problems saying that, yes, we could link to that database.
Brilliant. All right. Look, Phil, you've been great with the presentation and handling all those questions on the fly, so really appreciate that. So just to quickly wrap up, if you've seen anything you've liked today, which I'm sure you would have, and you'd like to talk further, please contact your account manager to discuss either next steps or how the Board solution can actually help with your organisation and connecting that to your Dynamics GP solution. If you're not sure who your account manager is, you can reach out to Sarah. Sarah helped organise the event today, so you would have received Sarah's invitation and registration, etc. So happily reach out to Sarah to follow up. And just finally, as an advertisement, we do have additional events coming up. So we just quickly, today's budgeting and forecasting session, which was run by Phil, we have an introduction to our new Performance Plus solution, which is, it's a new offering from PA, and it's perfect for organisations that are looking to help onboard new staff or to help train new people or help train new features and functionality within an application. As a tool that can sit across any application, it's not Dynamics GP or Board specific, and it can record anything that you do within any application and then play that back as a tutorial or a learning tool. So really encourage everyone to come along and have a look at that. It's something that we're excited about. It'll help with new deployment, upgrades, new staff members, and we really look forward to sharing that with everyone. And just the other two sessions there down the bottom, we are doing a launch event for the Dynamics GP 2016 release, which is coming out very shortly, and our launch events will start at the end of May. If you're an existing Dynamics GP user, please register for that event. We'd love to see you come along to one of our events. We are running those in multiple cities, and they are in-person events, so we look forward to seeing everyone there. And just to finish off, as you exit the session today, as you exit the GoToWebinar, you will see a little survey screen. At that point, on that survey screen, you'll have the opportunity to take advantage of a special offer that we're doing today just for this webinar, just for those people that have attended. So I don't want to give it away, because I want you to go to the survey and suggest how interested you are in the board solution. So thanks again, Phil, for the presentation today, and thanks everyone for really appreciate everyone coming along, and we look forward to seeing you at our upcoming events. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.